So the next concept is scattering of light, that is Tyndall effect. So Tyndall effect म्हटल्यार कितें आमकां खबर आहा in Earth's atmosphere we have a lot of minute particles like your water droplets, then the dust particles, small molecules. So we call it as a minute particles of Earth's atmosphere. Suspended particles of dust and molecules of air, the path of beam becomes visible. So म्हटल्यार कितें जाता आता वो रूम दर रूमान डस्ट असता राइट आणि सडनली तुम्ही कितें ओपन आसा सो हांगच्यान कितें जातलें विजिबल लायट भितर येतलें राइट. विजिबल लायट जेन्ना पास जाता सो तेन्ना आमकां वी कॅन से वेन लायट जेन्ना पास जाता वी कॅन सी द लायट. So it says that the path of beam become visible. So this is the path of beam becomes visible. कित्याक visible जाता is because ही जे light आसा पळय it starts minute particle strike जाता म्हळ्यार it hits the minute particles. So minute particle जेन्ना hit जाता so it will scatter the light, correct. सो जेन्ना फॉर एग्जाम्पल आमी ते गड्ड्यांनी बी खेळटाले पळय धाकटे आसतना सो एक कडेन मारल्यार कितें जाता बॉल दुसरे कडेन वचून पळयतालो सो हिट केले काय दुसरे कडेन वयता. इट्स द सेम थिंग. सो जेन्ना रे ऑफ लायट हिट्स दी पार्टिकल the light scatters in all direction. So and when the light gets scattered, okay, what we see is a beam of light is visible. We see the path of beam becomes visible. That is तुम्ही जंगलान बी पळयता आसतले very thick forest आणि suddenly वत पडटा तेन्ना मदल्यान अशे you can see the rays of light. So those rays of light is because of what those path beam hits the particles and after hitting it scatters in all direction. Jenna scatters jata pay what you can see that the path of beam becomes visible. So here you should remember one more concept, that is what visible light. Visible light म्हटल्यार कितें visible light is consist of 7 different colors, correct. हे आमी प्रिझमान पळयला राइट. प्रिझमान कितें जाता when that visible light when it passes through the prism it disperses into 7 different colors. You get is Vibgware, right. So violet आणि सकल खंयचो आसता red. So you have to remember one thing, violet have the minimum wavelength, okay, and it increases and the maximum wavelength is for the red color. So we say that shorter wavelength is violet and the longer wavelength is the red color. So what is the meaning of that? Meaning कितें जाता जेन्ना short wavelength आसा पळय when it is short wavelength light scatter चड जाता. Short wavelength scatter चड जाता whereas longer wavelength आसा पळय तो scatter कमी जाता. Scatter जायना चड म्हळ्यार चड अशें disperse जायना light. So violet color or the then the indigo, then the blue, okay, these all are have the minimum wavelength. So minimum wavelength scatters the most and the longer wavelength have the less scattering. So कशें याद दवरप, minimum wavelength more scattering, longer wavelength short scattering. So scatter चड जायना. सो इतले कॉन्सेप्ट याद दवरपाक जाय. सो आतां हांगा कितें जाता जेन्ना रे ऑफ लायट विजिबल रे ऑफ लायट when it hits the particle it gets scattered and is scattered into what it gets scattered the minimum wavelength light scatters जाता. इतलेच लक्षात दवरा फुडें कळटलें कित्याक युजफूल तें. पळय very fine particle scatters mainly blue color, this is short wavelength, correct. So fine particles असता पळय सो ते कितें जाता स्कॅटर जावन खंयचो कलर दिता ब्लू कलर दिता. whereas the large particle असता पळय स्कॅटर जावन कितें मेळटा scattered light of longer wavelength, that is red color. And very large enough is a sky that appears white. So तुम्ही हांगा म्हणटले फुडें नेक्स्ट why cloud appears white. आता point clear केला. The size of water droplet is very large. The size of water droplet is very large enough, right. So when the water droplet size is very large the scattering wavelength is almost wavelength of light is almost equally, so it scatters what almost equally scatters that, and what you get is a white light. So the main reason is because of the size of the particle that is very large. Why color of sky is blue? Okay, आमको blue कित्याक दिसता? पळय, the molecules of air and other fine particles in the atmosphere have size smaller than the wavelength of visible light. Since the blue has shorter wavelength than red, hence it will scatter the most. So आता तुमका explain केला. So imagine you have one particle over here. So एक particle असा. So imagine एक particle असा. So visible light will strike that particle. So when it strikes, we know that less wavelength you will have the scattering. So scatters down कितें जातलो? You will have violet light, you will have blue light, you will have indigo light. So as you go higher and higher wavelength, scattering जावपाना. So basically एक visible light when it hits the particle, it gives, I will say, violet, indigo and blue. But the question here is, if it arises three colors but आमका blues कित्याक दिसता? So that is a question, and the answer for it is sun. We know that it gives a light, okay, and it is a visible light. But if you see the spectrum म्हटल्यार कितें, चड खंयची light sun produce करता. Even if the violet have the minimum wavelength, but the ratio of what I say is, हांव ratio उलयतालो न्ही पळय. So जेन्ना sun rays, okay, so visible light, you have 7 colors, right? So if you see this region, you have more of blue color than the violet color. So ह्या area पे चड blue आहा. No matter the wavelength of this is less compared to this. So कितें जाता? Blue area चड आसा. That's why what we see is only blue color in the sky. So what is my answer? The molecule of air and other fine particle in the atmosphere have a size smaller than the wavelength of visible light. Since blue has shorter wavelength than the red, hence it will scatter the most. Clear? So this is what is the concept of why color of sky is blue. If there is no Earth's atmosphere, what will happen to scattering phenomena? If there is no Earth's atmosphere, there will be no scattering, sky will appear dark. Correct? So if scattering utna, जाल्यार आमका कशें कळटलें की visible light, white light and 7 colors आसा, and because of different refractive indexes समज scatter जायना. So आमका कळपात नसलें की blue आसतलें काय आनी कितें आसतलें. So it will appear dark. That's the concept. So hope you understand this concept. So next concept is color of sun and sunrise and sunset. कितें जाता? असो कित्याक दिसता आमकां? Okay, little reddish orange type अशें कित्याक दिसता? Okay, so here the explanation कितें म्हटल्यार very simple. So तुमकां आतां पळय हांगा reddish type दिसता, right? So that means what? Again remember the concept of the wavelength. So longer wavelength, right? So longer wavelength is what? Longer wavelength म्हटल्यार it will travel more. So scattering कमी जातलो. Scattering कमी जाता म्हटल्यार it will travel the longer distance. Whereas so when sunset and sunrise, the color of sun and its surrounding appear red. During sunset and sunrise, the sun is near horizon. This is what is a horizon, right? So your sunset and the sunrise खंय आसता, sun खंय आसता, it is near the horizon आसता, right? वो जेन्ना वयर आसता तुका red जायना. Exactly when it is in the horizon or near to the horizon, you see the red color appears, right? So the sunlight has traveled larger distance in atmosphere. Due to this, most of the blue light, that is shorter wavelength, are scattered away by the particle. So हांगा कितें जाता, जे blue light जे scatter जाल्ले उरता पळय, it goes away, and what remains is the light of the longer wavelength, that is red color, will reach our eyes. This is why the sun appears red in color. So easy to remember. कितें याद दवरपाक जाय, फक्त wavelength याद दवरपाक जाय. So horizon आकडे कितें जाता, horizon आकडे you have the sunlight has traveled the larger distance, चड distance travel केल्लो उरता, आणि चड distance travel करप is what is basically a red color. तेन्ना कितें जाता, most of the blue light कितें जाता, ते वता म्हटल्यार कितें जाता. So if हांगा वयर कितें जाता, वयर जेन्ना scatter जाता, then you see a blue light, but when it comes near the horizon, the red color travels the larger distance in the atmosphere, and because of that what we see is the red color. Okay, and the most of the blue light are scattered away by the particle. The light of the longer wavelength will reach our eye. This is why sun appears red in color. Why the danger signal or sign are made of red color? आता explain केला. Red color किती जाता? Red color it travels the longer distance आणि scattering कमी जाता. So scattering आता even for example fog असता. Even fogan सुद्धा जेन्ना तुम्ही ट्रॅफिक सिग्नलाकडे तुमकां रेड लायट पयसल्यान दिसता. कित्याक? बिकॉज तो स्कॅटर चड जायना. कितलोय पार्टिकल्स मदीं असले जाल्यार तो स्कॅटर जायना बिकॉज तेजी वेवलेंथ चड व्हडली आसा. वेरेज ब्लू कलर बी कितें आसा तेजे वेवलेंथ कमी आसा म्हणून स्कॅटर जावन आमकां सगळ्या कडेन ब्लू कलर दिसता. सो दॅट्स द रिजन आमी रेड कलर आसा पळय तो आमी रेड सिग्नल ऑर अ डेंजर सिग्नलाक यूज करता. फॉर एक्झाम्पल सायरन, पोलिसाची सायरन, एम्ब्युलन्स, तो ब्लू कलर आसता पळय, आय मीन डार्क ब्लू कलर or the red color असो असता, right? So why the danger signal signs are made of red color? Red color scattered the least when strikes the small particles, correct, of fog and smoke because it has a maximum wavelength. Hence, at large distance also we can see red color clearly. Okay, that is the concept. At noon, sun appears white. कित्या खातीर? So if you see at the horizon, it has a long distance to travel. Whereas when it is exactly top of head, it is a short path. So basically short path and a long path. So when it is short path, so sunlight will travel relatively through the atmosphere, right? Shorter distance it will travel relatively to the atmosphere. So shorter distance travel jata matlar ki blue light, violet light will be scattered, correct, because it has a shorter wavelength. Whereas when you come to the horizon, it will travel the longer path. So third path travel केल्यार आमकां खंयचो कलर दिसता? Red color. This is what we have already explained in the horizon case, right? At noon, when sun is overhead, sunlight would travel shorter distance relatively through the atmosphere. Hence, at noon the sun appears white. This is white, sorry, as only a little of blue and white color are scattered. Clear? That's it.